Hey, everybody. Welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Kristi Brower here with my co-host, sister, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, so good. The sun is so bright and beautiful today. We just took a drive to get out in it and get some sunshine. And yeah,
The sun is back.
Yeah.
Probably only for a couple days, but we've got it.
Yeah, it's coming right off my house. So the pigs have a new favorite pastime because there's huge sheets of ice coming off my house.
Oh.
And so they are grabbing pieces of ice. And I don't mean little pieces of ice. I mean easily the size of a brick or more. And crunching on them outside, which is fine. In the summertime, I throw them ice cubes and they love it. But so they've discovered, but they keep bringing bricks of ice in the house.
Oh, geez.
Because they have a doggy door, that they can come and go from the backyard. Well, they keep running in the house and dropping some enormous brick of ice and then just going to bed.
Oh, my gosh.
Someone's going to get killed.
Yeah.
In a huge puddle of ice.
So, and it might be you. Yeah, slipping on that ice.
Likely me. So, yeah, I'm keeping a really close eye on what those two are doing. But anyway, at least they're entertaining themselves somehow, right?
Well, yes, it's better than other things they have been known to do.
This is
where
true.
we live, we get the least amount of sunlight as kind of anybody else in the U.S.
Yeah.
We're at a weird angle, so we don't get enough. Plus, we have so many gray days in the winter.
We're not saying we have vampires here, but maybe we have vampires here.
I mean, you all thought it was Forks,
right?
But it's not. It's Eastern Idaho, man. It is. No.
Pretty much.
Maybe we should do a vampire show.
Well, I'm down for some vampire hunting. I have some thoughts.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of well-known and creepy, we are going to do the Night Stalker-Richard Ramirez today. We've had several requests to do this case, and as you know, a very well done and very horrifying documentary just dropped on Netflix a couple of weeks ago on Richard Ramirez. It was really graphic, but really good. I mean, this is a crazy story from beginning to end. Richard Ramirez did not have a chance in hell of not being a serial killer.
Right?
Wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, I know plenty of people are exposed to bad shit when they're kids that don't turn out to be serial killers, but they sure raised the bar on this one. His family,
didn't they?
Oh my word. It's just unbelievable. The people they were, the way they formed and shaped this kid.
Ugh. So let's get into it because holy crap. So he was born on February 29th, 1960. So he was a leap year baby. Interesting.
Yeah.
In El Paso, Texas. His parents were Mexican immigrants. He was the youngest of 5 children. At 10 years old, he started smoking weed and hanging out with his cousin Miguel. Miguel was a Vietnam War veteran, and he liked to show Richard, or Ricky as they called him when he was little, photographs of the women he abused, including some posing with a severed head.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, but that's a bad way to start off your life.
Well, yeah. The trauma associated with that.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, he thought this uncle was cool, emulating him. Giving a 10-year-old marijuana? I mean, come on, man. That's...
Yeah. And then showing him like this, abuse porn kinds of stuff. Not cool. So then one day Miguel fatally shot his wife, Jessie, in the face while they were having a fight, and Ramirez was present. So he witnessed that.
Yeah. Which, with that killing, obviously he killed some people in Vietnam. You have to think that perhaps Miguel was the original serial killer in the family.
Right. It really does make you wonder, doesn't it? Like, what else did he do while he was in Vietnam, and what are the other things that he did? Because, definitely not cool. Because Miguel, was found not guilty of
Mhm.
her murder by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
And he spent a little time in the Texas State Mental Hospital.
Yeah.
But he really did not have consequences for what he did. Also,
No.
ding, 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 they found him mentally ill.
Yeah.
So this is not good. This is not boding well for Richard Ramirez, little Ricky Ramirez.
Yeah.
So a few months after Miguel shoots his wife in the face, Ricky goes to live with his sister Ruth and her husband Roberto. Well,
Mhm.
Roberto is a peeping Tom because
Mhm.
of course he is. Like, what the
Right?
hell is the matter with these people?
Yeah.
And he used to take Ricky along with him to peep on people.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
WTF, family?
Right.
Like, you're just trying to build a serial killer out of this kid? Ugh.
Right. He just goes from one gross, dangerous person to another.
Right, absolutely. So Ramirez moves to California in 1982. And this is where the majority of his crimes occur, as we know. And so he's 22 at the time when he moves to California. So what is now known to be his very first victim, and this was not actually identified as being one of his victims until 2009 because of DNA. He wasn't originally thought to be the killer of this person.
Yeah.
But he killed 9-year-old Mei Lung.
Yeah.
She was a Chinese American girl. He murdered her in the basement of a hotel in San Francisco, and that's where he was living at the time.
Mhm.
He raped her and stabbed her to death, and then he hung her body from a pipe. Now, he was not initially thought to be, he was never suspected of this crime until DNA proved it later. Sorry about my relentlessly barking dogs in the background. They just won't quit.
Something has really bothered them.
Yeah. So then we get to his very first murder in Los Angeles, and that's where most of his murders occurred. Well, most of his crimes occurred, I guess we should say, because he's a serial murderer, but he's also a thief and a rapist.
Yeah.
And he has no, I think one of the reasons it took as long to catch him as it did, and it really didn't take that long, it was less than a year, but I think that they struggled with him because he had really no MO. He was so chaotic. Sometimes people died, sometimes people didn't die. Sometimes people were robbed, sometimes not. Sometimes there was a rape, sometimes there wasn't. Like, there was no pattern to follow because he was so chaotic. Like, his brain was, out of control.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, no pattern, no typical pattern that law enforcement had seen. They were looking for a pattern that they couldn't find because
there wasn't one.
There wasn't one. Yeah.
No. So his first murder in LA was Jenny Vinkow, and she was 79.
Mm-hmm.
She was murdered in her apartment in Los Angeles, and he cut her throat, and he cut it so deep that he almost decapitated her.
Mm-hmm.
They did find his fingerprint on a window screen, and that's how he got into her house. Eventually, they figured that out after they figured out who he was. So then on March 17th in 1995, he attacks Maria Hernandez. She was 22. This was in California, Rosemead, California.
Mm-hmm.
He shot her in the face. So this is the other thing. Like, some of his murders are stabbing. Some of them are shootings. Like, there's just there's no organization to this at all.
No.
Weirdly, she survives because a bullet that he shot at her ricocheted off a set of keys.
Yeah.
But he did shoot and kill Dale Yoshi Okazaki, who was her roommate.
Yeah.
So an hour after that, he goes to Monterey Park and he shoots Cy Leon Veronica Yu twice. So he pulls her out of her car. He was he did a lot of carjacking.
Yeah.
Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully.
Yeah.
Ramirez was a kind of a basket case, really. And he wasn't super good at what he did. I'll just say that. I mean, he killed a lot of people, but he frequently unsuccessfully tried things.
Injured people, but didn't kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he pulled her out of her car and he shoots her. So then they start calling him the walk-in killer for walking into people's houses and killing them,
Mhm.
and the valley intruder. So he has a lot of different names. The Night Stalker came from the media, and it's the one that's really stuck.
Yeah.
But for a while, as all of these murders were being committed, I don't feel like the police really actually knew that it was all one person,
Yeah.
because there were so many different things
No.
happening in so many different places.
Right. And they didn't have one thing that was tying them together.
No,
So they
there's
just
no
had
connection between these victims at
all
all.
of this crime happening that they're
Yeah.
scrambling to keep up with and investigate, but they don't know
No.
that it's all one guy.
Yeah. So on March 27th of 1985, he's in Whittier, California. This is a house that he has burglarized in the past. So he did a lot of
Mhm.
stealing, never worked. And so
Oh,
he did a
yeah.
lot of stealing to support himself. So he just stolen, he burglarized this house before.
Yep.
He breaks into it again and fatally shoots Vincent Charles Zazzara, who was 64. His wife, Maxine, wakes up hearing the gunshot, of course. He beats her and searches their house for valuables, looking for stuff he can steal.
Mhm.
She escapes. He kind of ties her up, and she escapes
Mhm.
and grabs a gun that they have, but unfortunately it was not loaded. So he shot her 3
Yeah.
times, excuse me, and then stabbed her and gouged out her eyes.
Right. Figure that out. What the hell?
Right.
And then
And
puts
he
the
puts the
eyes
eyes.
in a jewelry box.
Right. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap, this dude. He does leave footprints in the flower beds, and he leaves bullets at the scene. So they do start to put some things together, like some bullets are starting to match like other bullets at other crimes. And so they're starting to think maybe this might be the same person.
Yeah.
Then on May 14th of 1985, he breaks into Bill and Lillian Doy's home. This is in Monterey Park, California. So he shoots Mr. Doy, Bill, in the face and beats him unconscious. And then he ties up Lillian, and then he goes searching their home for valuables, and then he rapes her.
Yeah.
But he doesn't kill her. Bill Doy dies
Yeah.
at the hospital, but
Right.
she was sexually assaulted but not killed.
Well, what the hell, Bill Doy? Shot in the face and doesn't die. Gets beat
Yeah.
unconscious, still doesn't die, and dies at the
Yeah.
hospital. This
I
must have been
know.
a tough guy, you know?
Tough dude. Yeah. Very much so. But again, very weird, not following any kind of pattern at all.
Yeah.
Then on May 29th of 1985, he's driving a stolen car in Monrovia, California.
Yeah.
He breaks into Mabel and Florence Lang's home. This is Ma and Letty.
Mhm.
He attacks Lang with a hammer. He ties her up in the bedroom, and then he ties up Ma and attacks her. He uses, this is so weird. I don't mean to laugh. It's just, this guy is so nuts. He uses Ma Bell's lipstick to draw a pentagram on her body and the walls of both of their bedrooms after he rapes her. Now, we know that he got kind of interested in Satanism as a kid. He was not interested in going to church at all, got kind of interested in Satanism. Although Satanism, let's be clear, doesn't actually mean anything.
Yeah.
And a pentagram is not a satanic symbol at all. It is
No.
a pagan symbol, but the world takes this stuff as like crazy satanic stuff, even though it wasn't.
When people are using a pentagram and calling it a satanic thing, that's because they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Exactly, yes. And so we just want to be clear that that's how it was taken in the community, but that's not what it is in any way.
How he was portraying it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that's what he wanted. He was, trying to scare people, I think. So he did rape Ma Bell, and then he left the women tied up. They were found 2 days later alive, but Ma Bell did die of her injuries eventually.
Yeah.
So
and they were sisters, right? These were sisters that were in their 80s.
Yeah. He attacked a lot of older people.
He did.
When you see pictures of him, we'll put a picture of him up. because he was not a big, tough dude at all.
No.
And he was quite small and very gaunt. Like, he wasn't going to be able to fight anybody very tough. And so he did go after elderly people. I also, because they had more money and things for him to steal, because part of his motivation was most definitely
stuff.
Theft. Yeah, because he didn't have any other way of supporting himself. So he was kind of a one-stop shop criminal, you know?
Yeah.
He was breaking into murder and rape, but he also wanted to see if they had any good stuff he could steal. That was certainly part of it.
Or just, you know, put a set of eyeballs in the jewelry box, you know.
Yes. To replace the jewelry he took. This guy.
They'll never notice. Yeah.
No, never notice. So then on May 30th, he moves on to Burbank, California. And this is the thing. I mean, he like goes from town to town, scaring the living shit out of people.
He's hopscotching all over the place.
He is. And so he drives that stolen car that he's still got. And he breaks into the home of Carol Kyle. And he ties her and her 11-year-old son up. And then he asks the son to point out where's the good stuff that I can steal. He rapes Carol, and then he ties the son to her and flees, and they live.
Yeah.
Then on July 2nd in 1985, he moves on to Arcadia, California. He's still driving that same stolen car, and he goes to Mary Louise Cannon's home. He knocks her out with a lamp and stabs her with a knife from the kitchen, and she's found dead. Yeah. So now lamp and knife are the weapons. Gosh, I can't even think of the word. This is so crazy. It's scrambling my brain. Yeah. Then on July 5th of 1985, he moves on to Sierra Madre, California. He attacks Whitney Bennett, who was 16, with a tire iron while she was sleeping. He then tries to strangle her with a telephone cord. But apparently the cord sparked, like electrical sparks. Oh. And so Ramirez leaves. So I guess this is weird. Okay, so the cord sparks, and at the same time, she starts to breathe. It's probably because he let go of the cord because it sparked and it scared him.
Right.
But he believed that Jesus saved her, and so he left, and she did survive.
Wow.
I mean...
Okay. He did have a very weird, he hated Christianity. I guess his early days, his dad pushed Christianity really hard. And it was a part of the abuse that he endured as a little kid, was that the, hiding behind Christianity. And so that's part of his illness, whatever this is, was, hating Christianity, Christians, and being afraid of Jesus, obviously.
Yeah, very clearly. Very clearly. Yeah. So then on July 7th, 1985, he's still in Monterey. He breaks into the home of Joyce Lucille Nelson. He burgles her home, steals her stuff, and then he beats her to death and leaves a shoe print on her face. So then he breaks into another home, the home of Sophie Dickman. He handcuffs her, holds her at gunpoint, tries to rape her, but isn't successful. Interesting. And he steals her jewelry, and then he makes her swear on Satan that he stole everything of value in her home.
Yeah. So at this point, he has now beaten and or murdered around 12 to 13 people just this year. Yeah. And this is starting in March, and now it's July. I mean, it is a steady stream coming in. But that shoe print he left on her face, he left a few other shoe prints, and they are finally tying together. This really is the same person. He's leaving shoe prints. It's the only prints he's leaving. He left that fingerprint at one of his very first murders, but after that, he left glove prints. He got better. But the shoe print, and detectives had literally gone with that shoe print to athletic shoe stores to try and figure out what makes this mark. Well, it's pretty fortuitous that shoe was a brand new shoe on the market that was quite rare, and very few people had it. And they knew that he was wearing black tennies from the reports of the people who had survived. And so they had it
Right.
narrowed down to the exact shoe that he was
Mhm.
wearing. And what's really crazy is only one pair of black shoes of that brand had been sold in Los Angeles.
That is
It,
so crazy.
isn't that
The
wild? I mean, it
odds of
ended up
that.
being a dead end because they had no way of proving what store got that shoe or who bought it. And they couldn't really make that public without blowing their cover on the shoes. So they didn't want to say that. So it didn't get them anywhere. But like 4 pairs of that shoe were sold in Arizona and 1 pair in Los Angeles. And that's it
Wow.
of the black.
At least would really, help them identify him eventually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then in July, so I mean, he's just on a spree, basically. Every month
Yeah.
there's something new. So he moves on to Glendale, California. He buys a machete, and now he's driving a different stolen vehicle because, of course, he bought a machete. I mean, what crazy person doesn't own a machete?
Right.
He goes into Leela and Maxon Knighting's home, and he kills them with a machete and the gun. Okay. And he burgles their home, steals from them. So then he drives to Sun Valley, California, breaks into the Kovaneth home and fatally shoots Chainarong Kovaneth, and he rapes and beats Somkid Kovananeth, ties up their 8-year-old son, and makes him point out the valuables in the home. That's a real common thing that he does. He doesn't kill the kids.
Oh.
He ties them up and makes them show him where's all the good stuff to steal.
Mm-hmm.
He also makes her swear to Satan that she isn't hiding money.
Mm-hmm.
So, got the Satan swearing stuff again. But interestingly, he doesn't kill the children. He just ties them up and makes them help him steal from their house.
Mm-hmm.
So then on August 6th of 1985, he breaks into the house of Chris and Virginia Peterson. And he shoots Virginia in the face, and then he shoots Chris in the neck. And then he tries to run from the scene. But Chris Peterson fights back.
Mm-hmm.
Ramirez does manage to escape, but both people survive.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you, he's not super good at his job here.
No. And it sounds like Chris put a fairly good hurt on him before he got away.
He did, yeah.
Really too bad he wasn't able to finish the job.
Yeah.
Then and there. But of course, he was, also shot in the neck. So
he was. So, yeah, that may have been a bit of a hindrance. Poor guy.
We'll cut you some slack, Chris.
We will definitely cut you some slack. So on August 8th of 1985, he moves on to Sakina and Elias Abawath. And he shoots Elias, who was asleep. Then he handcuffs, beats, and rapes Sakina while, of course, demanding, where's the jewelry? I need to, make some money on this. And he ties up their 3-year-old son. But again, doesn't hurt the kid.
One thing with this case that always jumps out at me is where was he fencing all that jewelry?
Yeah.
Somebody was buying all of these stolen goods from him.
They were, but this is the 80s. He's jumping cities.
Yeah.
There's no one would get away with that now, or it would be much harder to because of the internet. But I feel like he, in his insanity, was wise enough to know that if he kept moving towns and moving jurisdictions, they were going to have a much harder time finding him.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what happened. He would just go to a different town and fence the stuff before, word got out, and just managed to just stay ahead of everything there.
Yep.
Okay, so then on August 18th, 1985, he moves on to the San Francisco Bay Area. So he's kind of used up LA, really. He's been all over around in the Los Angeles area. So he breaks into the home of Peter and Barbara Pan, and he shoots Peter in the head. Then he beats and rapes Barbara before he fatally shoots her.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses lipstick to draw a pentagram and write Jack the Knife on a bedroom wall.
Yeah.
So that's, an homage to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's drawing the pentagrams because he wants to freak people out and think this is a satanic thing.
Mm-hmm. And yes, you did hear that correctly. Peter Pan. Dude broke into the home of Peter Pan of all things.
Yes, he did. I remember the first time I heard that, I was like,
Me too. I'm
cannot
like, say what now?
that's not right. But yeah, that's kind of funny. Okay, so on August 25th of 1985, they finally identify Ramirez. So this is awesome, and I'm going to post the picture here. Let me switch out our pictures so we can do this. Okay, so Ramirez drives to Mission Viejo, California. He's again driving a stolen car. It's an orange Toyota. James Romero Jr.'s 13-year-old son hears Ramirez outside their home. So he's at their home. He's going to break in, do his thing. He wakes up his parents. The little boy wakes up his parents like, hey, there's somebody out here. So Ramirez runs away. But the family did see the color and make of his car and part of the license plate number. So this is the first time anybody has seen what he's driving. So then he breaks into Bill Carnes and Inez Erickson's home, and he shoots Carnes, 3 times in the head. And he tells Erickson that he's the Night Stalker, because they've started calling him the Night Stalker in the news, and that she must swear to love Satan. He does rape her, and then he tells her, tell them the Night Stalker was here.
Yeah.
So she later is able to give officials a description of him, and they're able to find that stolen orange Toyota.
Yep.
And there is a single fingerprint on the mirror, and it matches Richard Ramirez. Yeah. So officials release they have a drawing of him, and then they get a mugshot because, he's been in jail before, because of course he has. Before he started killing, he was in jail a whole bunch for theft.
Yeah.
So they release this and they say, we know who you are now, and soon everyone else will. And they release this mugshot of him from 1984. And that's that one I already showed. I'll put it up again.
Yeah.
So you can see the drawing they had of him very close to the picture.
Now, one thing that we will say is that while this was the timeline of all of the attacks and murders of the adults, he also, amidst all of this other shit, had many instances of kidnapping children and taking them to abandoned places and sexually assaulting them and then letting them go. And we didn't include all of that on our timeline. Those were a lot of little kids. He didn't kill any of them. He would rape them and let them go, in a lot of cases, making sure they got safely to a gas station or somewhere where they could, be taken to safety.
Yeah, he was like
also happening amidst all of this.
He was like a weirdly kind pedophile. I don't know. I mean, psychologically, how do you explain him?
Well, that just takes me straight back to good old Uncle Miguel.
Yeah.
What do you want to bet that this boy was raped many times by family members?
I don't have any doubt. With the family that he lived with, my God. Yeah, of course. He experienced sexual abuse and he continued to perpetrate it. But weirdly, in all of these situations, protected the lives of the children, even though they were tremendously traumatized, whether he assaulted them or he killed their parents and tied them up and made them show him where all the good stuff was to steal out of their house. He didn't kill any of them.
No. And in fact, it was a 6-year-old that helped convict him, that helped pick him up out of a lineup. A 6-year-old. Yeah. Astonishing.
Crazy. Absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
So then something really awesome happens.
Yeah.
This is probably my favorite part of this whole story. So in the midst of all of this, when they release his mugshot and everything, he isn't even in California. No. He had taken a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother. So, in the midst of his murder spree, he goes to visit family. Yeah. Again.
As you do.
Bizarre. Yeah, as you do. So he's on his way back to California. So he was gone only one day. I really wonder, like, you ride a bus all the way to Tucson to see your brother for one day.
One day, I know.
Weird. Yeah. But he's on his way back, and his mugshot is everywhere. It's all over the newspapers. It's all over the news. He gets back and he sees himself on a newspaper and freaks out. So he starts running because he walks into this bodega and some women in there start calling him killer. Like everybody immediately recognizes him. So he starts running because he knows they've called the cops and he's in trouble. He tries to carjack, he actually tries to carjack 3 different vehicles unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
Which that's hilarious.
Yeah. He's obviously frantic and not thinking.
Yeah. Runs
doing a bad
across
job.
multiple lanes of freeway. He's just running like he's on fire. But he tries to carjack another vehicle from a woman. But a group of people, like in the neighborhood, saw him do it, and they pursue him. And they smack him over the head and pin him down and hold him down until the police can come and get him.
A metal bar. This guy gives him a couple of good whacks, and then they hold him down.
Yeah.
And he's awesome.
Yeah. Totally awesome.
You're not doing that in my neighborhood. Nope. We're done with this. Yep.
Well, and the cops had very unsuccessfully, had been quite unsuccessful at finding him. But man, the people in this neighborhood, like, we are done with this shit.
Yeah.
We're over, dude. He's pretty lucky, honestly, that he made it to trial. Because that mob, might have just taken him out.
There were plenty that wanted to.
There certainly were. So the police obviously showed up and took him into custody. And let's see, I'll show you that mugshot because he looks a little worse for wear in this one.
Yeah.
Whoops. Nope, wrong one. Technology. There we go.
Yeah.
So this is his mugshot after he's been pinned down and had the crap beat out of him by the people in the neighborhood where he tried to carjack. So he sits in jail for a long time. He sits in jail until July of 1988 before his trial begins. So, of course, proving his.
So that is 3 years, just to be clear. That is 3 years to the month that he was arrested.
Yeah, and obviously did not get bail and was not able to get out. But at his very first court appearance, he raised his hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled, "Hail Satan." Because of course he did.
Yeah.
He also was overheard planning to shoot the prosecutor with a gun. Some guards at the jail heard that. And that he had intended to smuggle a gun into the courtroom. And so they had to put a metal detector outside and search everybody really intensely because, this is Richard Ramirez. You cannot screw with this. Yeah. He will do anything.
Yep. Yep. Well, and they were protecting him really intensely because, everybody wanted him dead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The whole community did. And so they were really nervous about, him getting shot and killed before they could try him. Weirdly, during his trial, one of the jurors on his jury died. Her name was Phyllis Singletary. And there was this big uproar that maybe he had somehow hired someone to kill her. Turns out, no, it was a murder-suicide. Well, it was a murder by her boyfriend. And he later commit suicide. But it was a weird coincidence.
It was, especially because he had a really bizarre following of women.
Oh my God,
that
right?
Were absolutely in love with him. They were treating him like some kind of pop culture star. Yeah. And so there was question if, one of his little followers had done this. But turned out it was domestic violence. But
it was. But he was convicted on September 20th of 1989, and he was convicted on all charges. So 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. He was sentenced to death. He was given 19 life sentences, and he was sentenced to death to die in California. In true psychopath fashion, when he was convicted, he said, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland."
Yeah.
I mean, for realsies, you guys. His trial was one of the most expensive trials in the history of the state of California.
Yeah.
At the time, it cost $1.8 million, which I guess in 2019 would have been like $3.7 million.
Yeah.
So huge, huge trial. But do you know what hybristophilia is?
No.
Hybristophilia is when a person experiences sexual arousal for someone who has been convicted or has committed heinous crimes.
Well, there you go. There's
And
his
there was a
words.
lot of hybristophilia around this dude.
Mm-hmm.
He had all these fans writing him and visiting him starting in 1985. This is long before he was ever convicted. It was just when he went to jail originally.
Oh, yeah.
Doreen Leoy wrote him 75 letters during the time that he was incarcerated. And in 1988, Ramirez proposed to her, and October 3rd, 1996, they were married in California's San Quentin State Prison.
Jesus
Doreen,
Christ.
what are you doing? Holy shit.
What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, come on. Can you imagine that everyone in her life was like, Doreen, what are you doing? You know, come on. So freaking bizarre. And at one point, she said she would commit suicide when he was executed. But somehow she wised up. Get this. Okay. I guess everybody has their wall, right?
Moment. Yeah.
In 2009, when DNA confirmed that he was the man who committed the rape and murder of Mei Lung, she decided she would leave him then. I was like,
it's not too hard to leave someone that's, in prison for life, awaiting murder or, awaiting
right.
execution. I mean,
Life sentences wasn't enough for her, but one more murder. That was it. This was the final. I mean, what the hell, Doreen?
Is that because he?
What are you doing, Doreen? Right. What did you just say? I missed that.
I said, was that because he lied to her? He didn't complain about that one?
Maybe. I honestly, who the hell knows?
Maybe she was cool with him because he'd never killed any children. But then when it turned out he did.
Then it was a thing. I don't know. It's hard to believe that that's what put her over the edge and all the other stuff was okay.
Yeah.
He did have some appeals in August of 2006. That first round was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Did uphold his convictions and death sentence. And he did, try. He had some other appeals pending. But then in 2013, by this time also he was engaged to Christine Lee. Christine, what are you doing? Christ's sake.
What the hell?
Right. Come on. So in 2013, he died of B-cell leukemia.
Yeah.
So he did not even live out his entire, they figured he wouldn't be executed for, probably 10 or 15 more years after that because he had appeals pending at the time that he died.
Yeah, Fecker got out. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. I know. I'm sorry, but he got away with a lot of shit. And he certainly didn't sit in prison nearly as long as he should have.
So wait, did the second wedding not happen?
No, they were engaged.
Oh.
But he died. Thank God for you, Christine, you dumbass. He died before you could marry him. Listen, if you're listening, you need therapy.
She's probably engaged to Scott Peterson now.
Probably at this point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my hell. He had a long history of substance abuse. He also had hepatitis C. Ooh. And that kind of, he was already not in good shape. I mean, you see the pictures of him. He looks like shit.
Oh, right. It looks horrible. Yeah.
And so it wasn't too surprising. He died at 53. And he had been on death row for 23 years by that point.
Not long enough.
No, no. There was a lot of study of his mental health because, yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
And one of the psychiatrists that studied him said that he was a made psychopath, not a born psychopath. And you can definitely see how he was made to be a psychopath.
Oh, yeah. With that
Yeah.
glowing family history. Yeah.
He also had quite a history of head injuries before the age of 6 years old.
Oh,
And he had developed temporal lobe epilepsy, and he was very aggressive, and he had some problems with hypersexuality, which are all like temporal lobe damage problems that can happen from multiple head injuries. So, his environment, along with physical abuse, really made him.
yeah.
Fortunately, his spree lasted less than a year. Can you imagine if this had
Yeah.
gone on
It,
for, any longer? My
oh,
God.
and it was such a difficult back and forth between the detectives working the case
Mhm.
versus their bureaucratic supervisors versus the mayors and versus the press. Those four
Yeah.
entities were not in sync, and
No.
there were lots of times where they felt like they were close to catching him, and then there would be a leak from the department to the press. Or, at one point, Dianne Feinstein was a mayor at that point, and she chose to release a bunch of information that she wasn't authorized to release, and that, or there was a miscommunication or something that really they felt like really endangered their case. There was a point where they thought they had him because he was going back to the same dentist, and they had officers at that dental office ready to grab him. And the powers that be decided that was too expensive, and they'd put a panic button into the dentist's office instead.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they pulled their people and installed a buzzer that very first day that their people weren't there, he showed up there to get the tooth finished because he had a badly infected tooth. The
Mhm.
dentist's office is pushing the button over and over and over again. After this guy leaves, the dentist calls the detective and says, "Where the hell were you guys? He was here." And we kept pushing the button. Well, it malfunctioned.
Yeah.
That would
So
have ended
stupid.
it right then and there. It would have saved a bunch of lives. A
It
whole
would
bunch
have.
of things like that
It
happened.
Well, even when they released the sketch and when they released his name, the detectives did not want that to happen. They
No.
wanted the opportunity to go get him before it all went public because, what they didn't know was that he was on that bus, that he'd been to Tucson. They were watching the bus station because they were afraid he would run to it,
Yeah.
but he was actually arriving into it. Like, it was
Yeah.
this crazy thing that
Yeah.
happened, and ultimately they did catch him, but it was
Yeah.
very lucky that the people in that
But
community grabbed him and
right.
just pinned him.
Well, that was a rough and tumble community,
Yeah,
and they were brave enough to grab
they
the
were.
metal pole and beat him over the head with it. Had he been in
Yeah,
any other community, they might not have done that, but these
he
guys
might
would
have
not.
run away. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of weird coincidences and miscommunications. Well, the other part of
Mhm.
it, I feel like, was just the fact that it was so many different cities and
Yeah.
so many different police departments, and we've seen
Yeah.
that a bunch,
Mhm.
that has gotten, we think, better, the
Mhm.
communication between departments like that,
Yeah.
because he was very smart about going from city to city to city.
Mhm.
Now, that would not matter. But
Yeah.
at the time, things were not synced up. Like you said, like at
Yeah.
where was he hawking all of his wares every time he stole stuff?
Yeah.
That would be, immediately put out to
Mhm.
everybody if that were the case now, and he would have been caught that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's criminals like these that fine tune the criminal justice system,
For sure.
and
For sure.
I would like to think in this case it's one of those cases that helped encourage better interagency communication and sharing and, assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is frustrating. The detectives on this case, biggest case of their lives, and it was pretty intense for them in
Oh, yeah.
having so many things out of their hands, so many things they couldn't control when, if they ruled the world, they would have caught him a lot faster if people would have listened to them and abided by their requests, they would have. But, you know, so often it comes down to money. And that stupid thing with the dentist's office was all
Oh my
about money.
gosh. It was all about money. And that was horrifying because you
Mhm.
think about who maybe would have been saved had he not.
Right.
Had he
How
been
many
caught.
lives were lost because they were saving a few bucks?
Yeah.
You know, of
Sick.
what the salary of 2 men that were standing there keeping an eye on things. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so dumb, so
Yeah.
wrong.
It is. It is. Well, as you said, our criminal justice system learns from cases like this.
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of changes that have happened in California due to Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
But wow, you know, if you haven't seen the documentary on him, the Night Stalker on Netflix, go watch it. It's really good.
Mhm.
But we wanted to give you our take. Obviously, this is just a shared presented case. This isn't a cold read. There's no reason to read this case. It's solved, and you know he's long dead now.
Yep.
But it's an interesting one. I think we learn a lot from people like him. You know,
Mhm.
to hopefully prevent things like this in the future.
Right. I think one of the
Obviously,
biggest takeaways, whether we're talking about crime or just dealing with mentally ill people in regular life, is you can't make sense out of nonsense. You know, so often I have clients that call me and go, why is he doing this? Why is he acting this way? Well, you're trying to make sense out of a nonsensical person. You know, you're trying to make sense. And this is exactly what happened with him. He got away with things for too long because we were trying to make sense out of it. We were trying to put him into the box of serial killers that we knew. But his
he
chaos
definitely
made
didn't fit.
sense. Yeah, there was no
No.
organizing it. And I think we have to realize that in interactions in regular life, you know, with various people, sometimes you can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
Your brain really, really wants to. That our
Mhm.
survival, you know, wants to make sense of everything and put it in its category or in its box, but there's not always sense to be made.
No. Well, it's why we, you know, along with all of you listening and watching, are so fascinated
Mhm.
with true crime, is we want to
True.
make sense of nonsense.
Yeah.
And you can't make sense of Richard Ramirez except that learning about his childhood and growing up and the things that he was exposed to, I went, oh,
Mhm. Yeah.
there's the sense right there.
That tells the story. Yep.
It does. It does. Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you for being here with us. You know,
Yeah.
this is our Wednesday show, which means that tonight we have our Wednesday update, which
Yeah.
is at 7 p.m. Pacific. It's our live stream on YouTube. We'd love to have you join us. And
Mhm.
then on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, no, Mountain. They're always Mountain. Why do I keep saying Pacific? 7 p.m. Mountain on Wednesday and 7 p.m. Mountain on Thursday. Thursday is the psychic show. And
Yeah.
so we'll be talking about some fun stuff and doing some readings there. So we have lots more good content coming for you. And of course, if you would like us to cover a case, please go to truecrimeparanormalpodcast.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. There's a little form to fill out that sends us a case suggestion. And don't worry, we get them all. I know we haven't done them all yet. It's going to take us a long time because we have tons. You guys send us lots of cases and we love it. Please keep sending them. And we will keep working on doing them. But definitely the Night Stalker was a request. So there you go.
Multiple requests. Yeah.
Yes, it surely was.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know it. We are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Take care.